So we'll cover the loops today. We'll probably do some file IO as well, just input and output or reading from files whilst running the code. That's why I was saying it's probably best to use that compiler to the online compiler because it gives us a feature which I kind of thought it wouldn't have, but apparently it actually has. So we will work with that at some point as well. And hopefully we'll talk about functions and wrap up for the day. When is void used? Is that your question?
Yes, sir.
When the function returns no data type. So at some point today, we can actually, well, I can cover that now. You see, this function returns 0, and that the data type of 0 is of what? 0 is of what? What type of data? Of int data type. So it returns an int. So let's say we want to have a function that's print something. It doesn't return anything. So I'm just declaring the function, right? So the same way that we declare a variable before we use it, we do the same for functions. So we can have this as void, it returns nothing. So if I run it, you should see that it's not giving me any errors yet. I can actually complete this function by simply doing cout. You may complain about the semicolon, but let's see. Okay, how is that? And we can do print something is working. Let's call that function here. But because we just call it the function, yeah, I was surprised if you were not going to turn up for class. I'll just put semicolon there. So at the moment, because we're returning nothing, we just use void because it's returning nothing. And we are, because we also taking no parameters, we use void. But I want to try something, right? I want to move this definition to the end. So if I move the definition to the end, let it complain. And I want my declaration to be moved before the main function. So if I do this, let's run it now. Well, print something was not declared in this scope. Something like the same error we get, the variable is not declared in this scope. So to make it, to debug this, we just declare it and run the code as well. And then that's print something for us. Yeah? An int. In, well, the while loop, we just want to say copy out to the user, just because we need a recap of this. And we say, enter a number less than 10. We can put a prompt and we say, seeing, and we put message to say number, and that, and we can have while. So while so we have the keyword, the condition. So we put in the condition. So it's a while number is less than or equal to or greater than or equal to 10, because we are asking them to enter a number less than 10. Then we can copy out invalid entry. And we say C in number. Pretty much the same thing. So we end the while loop there, and I want to run it. So enter a number less than 10. It's not entered the while loop yet. At the moment, we are on point number 11, right? So I'll enter maybe 60. And now it's saying invalid entry, enter a number less than 10. Give myself space here, I can't edit, but finish. Then I'll enter maybe 3 before it accepts. So we've created a function that takes an integer as an input. We want to put the definition of that function at the end. So let me move it here on top of print function. And when it comes to the actual, what the function does, we want that function to carry on with the while loop for us. So we're going to take this away from here and move it to the function. And what the value of x, we will be passing number to it as x. So that whatever, for a function, we just take whatever you give it as an input, and then you can use it in the way you want. So in this case, we want to take the number from the user and check if that number is greater than 10, then we will basically just keep asking for it. So here we need to pass a variable of type integer to our function as well. So we call the function and the variable that we want to pass to it is the number they just entered. So let's run it to see if it complains. Doesn't complain. And then say print something is working. Let me try again, something bigger to see the while loop is working. Enter another number, enter another number.
Please explain this for me again. I'm confused with the
Which part do you want me to explain?
The number in the while, like function while.
Okay. All right. So think of it this way. You've got, before we said this function, it takes no input. Yeah, the function takes no input. That's why it's void. But for our function, we want a function that will take a number, check the state of the number. If the number is bigger than 10, it will ask the user to input another number and continue to check that. So we know that we need an input, and that input is of type what? Integer.
Yeah.
Right. So we come back to the same code. We ask the user to enter a number, and then we call our function, which uses the while loop for us, right? Which uses the while loop for checking. In this particular case, when we take the number and we pass it as input, here we just saying we're expecting an integer number. That number will replace x. So wherever you see x will be what? Number. Yeah. Wherever you see x will be number. But at this point, whatever was passed to it will change again to the little number. Makes sense?
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. So if I try with 50, then I try with 4, we notice it's actually working. Yeah. Let me know when you're done with your code and want us to move on.
My one is giving me error.
Let me do what I did. I'm to ask at this point, so we do with the while loop. Yeah, that's no point. Just gonna do with the loop and then also do another for the do while and another for the while. But I will just do this. Let's make this work for fun. So if people want to comment out later when they are trying their code, of course they can. Let me block out all this. Let's say we want to repeat a sequence. Let's say we want to do something like counting, where we count from 1 to 20, for example, or we want to print a number several times or something like that. Yeah, we can actually have something like, we use the for loop. So let me move this down, where we can say a for loop. So for something, we begin with the value to the end value, right? So beginning value, end value, and then the steps at which we are incrementing it. So we can just say for int I equal to, let's say 1 or 0, 2, and the 2, what we put there is just to separate it, a semicolon. 2 I, we've already declared I less than 20 or less than or equal to 20. And we want to increment it by 1. So we say I plus plus, right? Yeah, postfix, right? Or post increments. And we can say cout my code is looking at something. And we can copy out I, and we can end line. Right, so let's try that. We're just interested in the top code for now. So this is the beginning or initial value to the end value, and this is the steps at which we are incrementing it. Okay. So it starts from what? It started from 0, 1, 2, all the way to 20. Yeah. So we can actually play with it a little bit. We've got this one now. I want to comment out that one so we can have alternatives. Oh. Sorry, I forgot to record. Thank you. Yeah. Problem solved. So if I comment out that one and I repeat the same thing, we want to say, so we notice it counted from 1, 2, 3, 4 all the way. So we want to increment this, so we can just say I plus equal to 2 and run it again to see what happens. So it did multiples of 2 for us. What if we want to start from a bigger number? Let's say we start from 20 instead, and we want to reduce or go all the way to is greater than or equal to 1. We can't go up, so we need to go down, right? Then it's saying it counts from 20 down for us. Yeah. Or you can simply use I minus minus, and I can have that on the, and I can have I minus minus. Too many minuses. And that will, it will just count down using only 1. Yeah. Makes sense so far? Just some slight changes to your code and we will carry on. I've just given you different options of 4 different options. Let me add one more. Can I add one more? Yeah, because we did the infinite loop. Do you remember? Anybody remember we did infinite loop using the while loop? Right. So we can have an infinite loop with a for statement, but we still need to provide the 3 fields, right? The initial, the end, and then the increment. But we don't need to provide any value, just the structure, right? So initial, the increment, well, the end, and then the increment. They're like that. And we can try to see whether it complains. Oh, we don't need this. So I'll comment out this one and hopefully. Let me put int I at the top, okay. I equal to 0, and I'll do that just on top there, and I'll do I plus plus or I plus, and then that. So let's see. Then it keeps counting till it gets really tired, or probably runs another flow or something. Already, we want to move this to another function as well. Can I create a function and move it to it? Yeah. So we have, it doesn't return any value. So we're going to have void function. Well, I just choose fx and you choose 4, and which also takes nothing. It's just void. You don't need to type the word void there. And I want to move all this block to that function. And I'll call the function up. And see if it does what we want. So yeah, it does what we want for us. But I just want to comment out the other one. So we go with the first one we created. So let me comment this one out, and we can go with the first one we created. And we can have it count up to what? 1,000. So if we run, it's going to count from 0 to 1,000 and stop. Yeah? Okay. Are we on the same page? Let me know when you're ready for me to carry on. I mean, we could do this outside just as we've done with the other 2 and passed it as a parameter, but I want to say cout and say enter. And I want to say enter a number to skip. Yeah. And I'll do the prompt and I'll say enter a number to skip. And we want to see in let's call it skip. And let's declare an integer called skip. Remember this integer, right? This integer variable we are about to declare is local only to this function. Yeah? Yes. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
So an easy way that you think about it is like, we've got this room, we've got this block of code. We've got this block of code, which is this room, right? We have variables here because we are all in the same room. We can access each other. We can communicate with each other. Yeah. And those outside can be passed on. If they are passed on as an input, they can be part of us and then communicate with us as well. Then if you've got a common area, anybody sitting in the common area is a global variable. We can all access them as functions and other things. Does that make sense? That's line. So what we want to do with this count, remember it's counting up to 1,000, right? Enter a number less than 1,000. Right, and we will say if we put an if condition, if I is equal to, let's do it first before we even do this. On here, if I equals skip, then we will continue. So we want to see what the continue keyword does. Let's get rid of that. And let's skip 4. And go all the way up to see what happens. Yep, so you have 0, 1, 2, skip 3, skip 4, 5, 6, 7, and continue all the way down. Yeah?
Yes,
Break will stop the execution of the code. So we just say, run it once, let's enter 10. And then it counts only up to 10, and then it stops. It stops that loop and it will go on to the next line of code to run. Continue will go to the next iteration. Break will exit that loop altogether. Yeah? So we want to try something. Let's say, I mean, now we know the break one. Let's go. Not off. If I modulus skip is equal to 0, which means we are finding numbers that are divisible by that, divisible by the number we are skipping, right? So in this case, we can change it to skip multiples of, yeah? Because the modulo returns a reminder, yeah? So if it's divisible by the number, I should hopefully skip that number. Let's see. Let's try with 2. So, or what should, yeah, we're going to skip multiples of 2. Then we have 1, 3, 5, 7, 10, 9, 11 going. So we skipped all multiples of 2. Let's try maybe 3. We can say what we did before. I'm going to save this so I can make use of. Let me save this. And sorry, give me a bit of time. And then, what's the error message? Expected. Are you giving the if condition or?
Yeah,
Right. Okay. So we say if I equals 10, even though we are counting to 1,000, we want to use the word return. We still enter the number to skip. It doesn't matter. We are not using skip anyway. So let's put a big number for skip. So you notice that it counted to 10 and it behaved in a similar way as the break. I like this one. So maybe we keep that one.